A long time ago, in a vast kingdom surrounded by thick forests and towering mountains, there lived a powerful king named Adewale. He ruled his people with an iron fist, and his reign was built on fear. Even from a young age, Adewale had been taught that to rule a kingdom, a king must be feared, not loved. His father, the former king, had once said, "Compassion is for the weak, and weakness will destroy a kingdom." These words had shaped Adewale's rule. Now, he had no mercy for those who disobeyed him, no matter how small their offense. Despite the terror of the king's court, there was one man who had served King Adewale faithfully for many years. His name was Kwesi. He had been a servant since childhood, rising early every day to tend to the king's needs. Unlike the other servants, Kwesi did his work with humility and dedication, never once complaining. He believed that his service was honorable, even though he received little kindness in return. Kwesi had seen the king's cruelty many times, but in his heart, he held on to the belief that kindness could make a difference. The people of the kingdom whispered about the king's cruelty, but they also feared something else in the palace even more, a large, ferocious dog named Madu. Madu was no ordinary dog. He was a beast, massive in size with thick black fur, burning yellow eyes, and sharp teeth that gleamed in the sunlight. Trained by the king himself, Madu was used to strike fear into the hearts of the king's enemies. Many had been thrown into Madu's cage, never to be seen again. The king kept Madu close, for he believed that even the most loyal servant could turn against him. To him, only Madu could be trusted completely. Kwesi, though hardworking, had always been cautious around Madu. He had seen the dog's terrifying power, but there was something more he noticed. The other servants who fed Madu and cleaned his cage treated him with fear and disgust, throwing food at him from a distance and backing away quickly. But Kwesi thought differently. Even a beast needs care, Kwesi would often say quietly to himself. One fateful day, Kwesi was serving King Adewale at a royal feast. It had been a long and tiring day, and as Kwesi brought a cup of water to the king, his hand slipped. The cup fell to the floor, water spilling across the table. The sound of the cup crashing echoed through the hall. Silence fell over the room, and every eye turned toward Kwesi, who immediately fell to his knees, his face filled with fear. "My king, I beg your forgiveness," Kwesi said, trembling. The king's face twisted in anger. He stood up from his throne, towering over Kwesi. "You clumsy fool," the king bellowed. "After all these years, this is how you repay me? By spilling water in front of my guests?" The guests at the feast watched silently, their hearts pounding in fear of what the king might do next. Kwesi kept his head bowed, his heart racing. "Please, my king, it was an accident. I beg for your mercy." But King Adewale's heart, hardened by years of cruelty, had no room for mercy. "Mercy," he sneered. "I have no mercy for those who fail me." He turned to the guard standing nearby. "Take him to Madu's cage. Let him be thrown to the dog and devoured." The guest gasped. Everyone knew what this meant. Madu, the king's ferocious dog, had torn many apart, and Kwesi's fate seemed sealed. But before the guards could drag Kwesi away, the king held up his hand. "Wait," King Adewale said, his voice dripping with malice. "Before he is thrown to Madu, he will serve the dog for 7 days. He will feed it, clean its cage, and tend to it as a servant should. After that, we will see how Madu devours him." Kwesi's heart sank. He had been loyal to the king all his life, yet for one small mistake, he was to face this horrible fate. Still, he had no choice but to obey. The guards took him away, and his new duty began, serving Madu, the very beast that was meant to end his life. For the next 7 days, Kwesi approached Madu's cage with great fear. Each time he brought food, the dog would snarl and snap, its massive jaws ready to strike. But despite his terror, Kwesi did his duty faithfully. He fed the dog fresh meat every day, brought it water, and cleaned its cage. On the first few days, Madu continued to lunge at Kwesi from behind the bars, growling ferociously. Kwesi's hands trembled each time he approached, but he remembered his belief that kindness could make a difference, even with a beast like Madu. As the days passed, Kwesi began speaking softly to Madu. "You are a mighty creature," he said one day as he placed food in the cage. "I am here to serve you, just as I have served the king." Madu's fierce growling did not stop at first, but slowly, something began to change. On the third day, Madu did not lunge when Kwesi approached with food. Instead, the dog stood back, watching silently as Kwesi walked. By the fourth day, Kwesi noticed that the dog's snarls had softened, and by the fifth day, Madu was no longer growling at all. On the sixth day, something incredible happened. As Kwesi reached through the bars to place the food, Madu sniffed his hand gently and licked it. The gesture shocked Kwesi, but he smiled. "Perhaps even you, mighty Madu, can understand kindness," he whispered. By the seventh day, Madu had completely transformed. The once fearsome beast now followed Kwesi's every move with calm eyes, no longer threatening to attack. It was as though the dog had sensed Kwesi's genuine care and responded in kind. The time for Kwesi's punishment had come. King Adewale, with a cruel smile on his face, stood before Madu's cage, eager to see Kwesi devoured. The guards opened the cage door and pushed Kwesi inside. His heart raced, but he held on to the hope that his days of service had made a difference. As Kwesi stepped into the cage, everyone held their breath. Madu, the dangerous dog, stood up and approached him. The tension in the air was thick. But instead of attacking, Madu did something that left everyone speechless. He wagged his tail and leaned against Kwesi's leg, as if greeting an old friend. The dog licked Kwesi's hand once more and lay down beside him. Gasps echoed through the crowd. The guards, the guests, even the king himself were stunned. King Adewale's eyes widened in disbelief. "How is this possible?" he shouted. "Why has Madu spared you?" Kwesi, standing calmly in the cage, knelt beside Madu and stroked the dog's fur. He looked up at the king with sadness in his eyes. "My king," Kwesi said softly, "I have served this dog for 7 days. In those 7 days, I fed him, gave him water, and cared for him. In return, this dog has shown me compassion. But I have served you, my king, for many years, and for one small mistake, you chose not to forgive me. A dog, whom I served for only a short time, has shown more kindness than the king I have served all my life." King Adewale was silent. Kwesi's words struck him deeply, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from his mind. The crowd watched in awe as the king's face, once twisted in anger, softened with realization. The king, who had never before shown mercy, began to feel something he had not felt in years: remorse. He walked slowly toward the cage, his heart heavy with guilt. The man he had thought so little of had taught him a lesson that even his father had never spoken of. As he stood before Kwesi, the king spoke in a trembling voice. "You are right, Kwesi. I have been a cruel and unforgiving ruler. I thought strength came from power and fear, but today, you have shown me that true strength comes from kindness." The king turned to his guards. "Release him," he ordered. The cage door was opened, and Kwesi stepped out. King Adewale, filled with regret, embraced him. From that day on, King Adewale was a changed man. He ruled with compassion and mercy, understanding that a kind heart could win more loyalty than fear ever could. The people of the kingdom, once terrified of their ruler, began to love and respect him. Even Madu, the once dangerous dog, became a symbol of the king's transformation, now seen lying peacefully beside Kwesi, who had won the hearts of both beast and king alike. The story of Kwesi and Madu became a legend in the kingdom, passed down through generations. It taught that even the fiercest hearts could be softened by kindness, and that forgiveness was the greatest strength of all. Moral of the story: kindness can change even the hardest of hearts, and true strength lies in compassion and forgiveness. Thank you for watching. What are your thoughts concerning this story? Kindly tell us on the comment. Please, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel, CHUKWUDI ALAULOR Studio at CHUKWUDI ALAULOR. Thank you once again. See you in our next story.